Good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, October 6th, and this call is for anybody who is a procrastinator, a perfectionist, a self-hater, a self-saboteur, or anybody that hates getting on the phone or getting in front of the camera to grow their business. It's time to own the phone. Alrighty, welcome to today's episode 20 of On the Phone. Good to have you here today. I wanted to spend a little time talking about, what, procrastination, self-sabotage, sales call reluctance, perfectionism, all that stuff is all about, and then kind of go over what I do to help people overcome it. And so, what I'd like to do is kind of start off with a video. I've shared this before, but I love it, and I love sharing it with the people who follow me and who work with me, because I think it tells a lot about what our mindset needs to be regarding dealing with the things that are challenges for us. So let's go ahead and get that here, and let's go ahead and play this video here real quickly, okay?
I was just having a debate with a friend of mine, and we got stuck on the difference between fault and responsibility. She kept talking about how something was somebody's fault. It's somebody's fault. And I was like, it don't matter whose fault it is that something is broken if it's your responsibility to fix it. For example, it's not somebody's fault if their father was an abusive alcoholic, but it's for damn sure their responsibility to figure out how they're going to deal with those traumas and try to make a life out of it. It's not your fault if your partner cheated and ruined your marriage, but it is for damn sure your responsibility to figure out how to take that pain and how to overcome that and build a happy life for yourself. Fault and responsibility do not go together. It sucks, but they don't. When something is somebody's fault, we want them to suffer. We want them punished. We want them to pay. We want it to be their responsibility to fix it. But that's not how it works, especially when it's your heart. Your heart, your life, your happiness is your responsibility and your responsibility alone. As long as we're pointing the finger and stuck in whose fault something is, we're jammed and trapped into victim mode. When you're in victim mode, you're stuck in suffering. The road to power is in taking responsibility. Your heart, your life, your happiness is your responsibility and your responsibility alone.
Hey, I want to thank y'all for your response to my IG story, the fault versus responsibility. It's been a lot of comments about that. There was one thing I wanted to add also. I wanted to say there that taking responsibility, accepting responsibility is not an admission of guilt. You're not admitting that you're at fault. Taking responsibility is a recognition of the power that you seize when you stop blaming people. It's not like you're letting somebody who wronged you off the hook. Like, taking responsibility is an act of emotional self-defense. Taking responsibility is taking your power back.
I just love that, because it addresses two specific situations. One is that, hey, you know what, there is a problem, and that, we need to identify what that problem is so we can solve it. And then the second part of that is that really that problem is our responsibility to take care of, even though we may not be the ones who created that problem for ourselves. And, it's tough, because I was just doing a little math. We were talking, I think I've probably spent 45 years of my life as some sort of a victim. Now, I was a victim to a couple of things, and I think, there are truly victims in this world where somebody does something to them that they didn't deserve or didn't want or weren't expecting, that, really sent their life, in a crazy direction, in many cases, obviously a bad direction. So there are victims out there. There's no question about it. But there are a lot of people who, and we used to joke about this at NAEA, Jay Kinder used to says, your victim glasses. He used to call them the victim glasses, where, rather than taking responsibility for what we need to do to make things better, we always look to another reason as to why it happened, and we focus on the problem rather than solution and blame other people. And like I said, I probably spent about 45 years of my 53-year life doing that, and not accepting responsibility for who I was, where I'd come from, where I was going. And as a result of that, I just repeatedly made a bunch of bad decisions. And so, what I wanted to do today was just talk real quickly about where, procrastination, self-sabotage, perfection, and sales call and video reluctance come from, and then quickly go over, the 5-step process that I use to help people overcome all those things. When we're younger, and pretty much this is the same thing for everything that happens in life, what happened when we were younger really has a huge impact on who we become as we grow up, and certainly who we are as an adult. And there are things that happen that are very traumatic in some cases: sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse. Sometimes we're bullied mercilessly. Sometimes we see something traumatic. Sometimes something traumatic happens to us. Sometimes we have an adult in our life who's a voice of leadership or authority, where they say, hey, listen, you know what? Our family, nothing good ever happens with our family. You're never going to amount to anything, so don't try to work hard at it. Or you make an observation about something and you believe yourself to be poor or untalented or invaluable. Not valuable. And so we grow up, once these seeds are planted, we grow up and we water these seeds of doubt, of self-hatred, of lacking belief in ourselves, a lack of self-worth, lack of self-esteem. And every day that goes by, it gets worse and worse and worse. And for the most part, we don't realize that it's happening because it seems normal to us. And secondarily, we avoid situations in most cases that would put us in a position to resolve that issue, if that makes any sense at all. We have a sympathetic nervous system. It's our fight or flight, response. And when something happens that ignites that flight or flight response, and you probably notice it as a fast beating heart, lightheadedness, sweaty brows, sweaty palms, dry mouth, sweaty pits, anything like that, where you feel like, your state has changed to the point where you're looking to react to something and you're either going to fight or flee. And so when things happen to us, or we create beliefs about ourselves when we're younger that kind of trigger that response, one of two things happens. We either become a fighter, and we're like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to let anything happen. I'm going to fight my way through everything. I'm not going to let anything get in my way. Or we flee. And that's what I did for most of my life. I was a fleer. I avoided all situations where I thought I could get hurt, where I would get embarrassed, where my feelings would get hurt, where I hurt other people's feelings, where I thought I was going to be judged, thought less than, and so, I spent my life putting myself in secure situations, my whole life, but especially my youth, my life in my youth, putting myself in situations that, seemed to be safe. But as I grew older, because I didn't really deal with the things that happened when I was younger, those things, that got worse and worse. And so by the time I was 13, with all the things that had happened, including being bullied and having an eating disorder and many other things, I got to the point where I just didn't like myself. In fact, I hated myself. And I didn't think of killing myself back then, but I definitely wasn't happy with life. And so from that perspective, because I didn't do anything, and it got worse and worse and worse and worse. And then I made more and more bad decisions, ruined a marriage, ruined lots of friendships, wasted millions of dollars of money, spent a year in federal prison. If you haven't seen the story, if you scroll down on the Facebook page that this is on, you'll be able to see about a 17-minute video. Or if you click on videos up there and or up there, wherever it is, and click on the videos, you can go see the video where I explain kind of what my life was like. So my whole point here is that when things go left unchecked for so long, we start creating these inner belief systems, these inner identities, the hidden identities, where we believe certain things about ourselves, and those beliefs we have about ourselves determine what we're going to do, we're not going to do. We're going to say, we're not going to say. What we'll engage in that may be risky, or what we won't engage in that's risky, and vice versa. And so these hidden identities, in many cases, are what create procrastination and perfectionism and self-sabotage, and keep us from getting on the phone, and keep us from getting on those, because, again, lack of self-worth, lack of self-belief, lack of self-esteem, fear of being embarrassed, fear of being judged, fear of being hurt. Okay. And so that's why we avoid all those things. So the bad news is that if we don't attend to these things, then they're going to keep haunting us, and they're going to get worse and worse and worse. And if you have an addiction, like I had about 4 of them, or I have 4 of them, I should say, then you're going to do lots of destructive things to keep that pain from rearing its ugly head. For me, it was sex, pornography, food, improper use of money on a regular basis. And, the problem is that either when you stop those addictions or, even if you give a little break, all that stuff, all that pain, all those things that need to be dealt with are going to pop all back up again. I kind of liken it to being in a pool. If you've ever been in a pool and somebody throws you a ball and you take the ball and you hold it underwater, as long as you hold it there, it's fine. But as soon as you let it up, it pops right back up and it needs to be dealt with. And so, you may have experienced this in your life where, you went to the gym and you started working out at the gym. And then all of a sudden, one day you were tired, you didn't get up, or you got hurt and you never went back to the gym. Or, you set your goals and, the first couple of weeks were going great, but then you stop running or you stop making your meals or whatever. And so what happens is the things you're doing are great and they're good for you, but they're incongruous with what you believe about yourself, what you believe you're worth and what you deserve. And so your brain checks in, and this is, what's his, Rick Carson calls in his Taming Your Gremlin. He says your gremlin kicks in and starts saying, hey, whoa, wait a second. This isn't who we are. We don't take care of ourselves. We don't eat well. We don't think good things. We don't say good things. We don't engage in activities that help us become better. We really we lay low. We hide. Okay. We stay in sadness. We stay in depression. We stay in anxiety because that's who we are. Okay. And the fact of the matter is, until we address that and reverse what's going on, it'll only get worse and worse and worse, and a lot of people do some bad things to themselves and those things go unchecked forever. The good news is that you can attend to that stuff and it can go away a lot faster than you think it might be to get it to go away. It still takes some time and some work, but you can make it go away. And so looking at my own life and all the things that I went through, also suffering from sales call reluctance, procrastination, perfectionism, self-sabotage, and all those other things for, a good portion of my life. What I realized is that once you can find out the root cause of that, that hidden identity and what's causing you to not get the results you want in life by making phone calls or being a perfectionist or whatever, once you identify that, you can attack it and you can reverse the process. So quick 5-step process. Number 1, can't fight an enemy, can't beat an enemy that we don't know exists. So first thing is you got to become aware. Got to become aware. Awareness is the key. Let's become aware of where the problem came from and what it's doing to us. Now, on a lark, I just Googled one day because I was interested, like, can we talk to our subconscious? Like 1.5 million results came up. I was flabbergasted. So I did a bunch of reading. And the fact of the matter is that we can talk to our subconscious and we can ask it questions and it will answer our questions. And not only that, but it remembers everything that we've seen, touched, tasted, smelled, or heard. All of our 5 senses, and remembers it all. The problem is that it's all stacked on top like this, one memory on top of another, on top of another. So sometimes it's hard to go all the way back there and get that. However, if you do the following, whatever it is that was causing that, and maybe it's these things that are causing your hidden identities to keep you from achieving what you want, then it's real simple. You just go get 2 5x7 index cards, and on it you write, on each of them you write the same thing. Either what is the cause of my sales call reluctance, what is the source of my sales call reluctance, or what is the source of my procrastination, or what is my source of my perfectionism, or whatever it is. And you just write it on both those cards, and you keep one with you all day. You read it during the day. You take another one, you put it next to your nightstand. I'm putting it in my bedroom. That's why I look that way. And you put it on your nightstand next to your bed, and you go. You read it before bed. Great. Now, at this time, a lot of people are just like, that's the silliest thing I've ever heard. But everybody that does it, usually ends up telling me that it not only helped them find it, but it was crystal clear and it happened in a short period of time. So if you really want to go ahead and make these problems go away and start creating the life that you want and deserve, and not let your past or your habits of avoiding what's going to make you successful get in the way, you got to go and find it. Now, once you find it, the next part of the process is to deal with it as it comes up. So, a lot of times when we procrastinate, when we don't get on the phone or engage in those avoidance activities, we don't usually feel the emotion that comes up with it. We usually just feel the symptom, right? The lightheadedness, the sick stomach, the sweaty palms or whatever. But there are emotions that come up before that. And once you become aware and realize what the cause is, you're going to start feeling the emotions that come along with it before whatever is going to happen is going to happen. And so it could be anxiety, could be fear, could be panic, it could be whatever. And so when that feeling starts to come up, you're going to start doing 2 more things. You're going to define and identify what it is. So you're going to identify the feeling. What is this feeling? It's anxiety. Now let's define it. Where is it coming from? What's causing this? And it takes a little while to get used to it. It's like anything else. You got to like build that muscle. But eventually, when it comes up, people go, okay, that's this, and this is where it's coming from. And then what you need to do is you need to learn how to become present. You got to get present. You got to become mindful. And so what does that mean? Well, that means that you don't think about the future and get anxious. You don't think about the past and get depressed. You just focus on what's happening right there in front of you. Not literally what's right in front of you, but close your eyes and, engage in some breathing exercises and just focus on your breathing and just focus on what's happening right now. It's like a big breath and let it out and just start focusing on what's happening. And when you do that, and when you engage in meditation and mindfulness on a regular basis, what it does is it trains your brain, your subconscious, to not let emotions come and take over and literally, as I say, run roughshod over you, right? Because the emotions themselves are not terrible. It's when they take root and we respond to them when they're negative that really cause the problem, okay? And so you define and identify, and then you become present, and eventually that feeling will pass. And soon enough, the more you do it, the feelings will pass faster and faster, right? So that's the first part of it. The second part of it. So the third part is you got to reprogram your brain. Okay. The great thing is the way you reprogram it is the way you programmed it all the way up until this point. So all these negative thoughts, negative beliefs, all these things that popped into your head, well, they came as a result of thought processes that you went through, things you repeated to yourself, things you said to yourself in the back of your mind, and they're here today. The good news is if you want to change that, you just got to change what you're saying to yourself. Zig Ziglar said it real simply. He said, if you want to change your life and where you're going, so then you got to change what goes into your mind. If you don't change that, then nothing's going to change. So the change is on you. So how do we do that? Well, I'm a huge fan of Hal Elrod's book, The Miracle Morning. Gives you a very, very simple to follow 6-step program with 6 different activities that you can follow, built around his Savers program, his Life Savers, right? So scribing, which is journaling, and then reading, which is the R. The I is I always forget what the I is. I don't know why. Pardon me, V. Sorry, I. Sorry, scribing, and then A is for affirmations. V is for visualization. I'm sorry. E is for exercise. Right. The R is for reading, and the other one is for silence or meditation. And it's 10 minutes of each, and some people rearrange it a little bit at different times. But the whole point is just an hour of committed time to controlling what goes into your brain and teaching your brain new belief systems and using the skills and the talents you already have and what God gave you to just go ahead and start seeing different things, seeing them differently, feeling more differently about them. And the great thing is literally after a week, you would not believe just how much the quality of your life changes. Okay, so the way we program our brain is we get into that mode and start doing the morning, the lifesavers that Hal talked about. Now, here's the important thing. If you, based on what your challenge is, you want to pick affirmations that, kind of are counter to what that is. So let's just say you're a pleaser, right? That you need to please people all the time. Well, then your affirmation may be something like, I don't need anybody's approval or acceptance to feel good about myself. Or let's just say you're a perfectionist. You can say, listen, I'm okay with things as they are. Nothing needs to be perfect for me to enjoy it. And I don't need to be perfect either, right? So whatever the challenge is for you, find an affirmation that is the counter or the opposite of that. Get a book on perfectionism, get a book on procrastination, get a book on something that gives you some strategies and some thought processes around beating it. And eventually, as you start doing it and start to, start to change, pardon me, let me take a drink here. As you start to change what's going into your head and what you believe about yourself, you're going to change. And then soon enough, these emotions that come up and try to wreak havoc on you, they have much, much less control over you. The next part is you got to figure out what drives us. So, Daniel Pink in his book Drive talks about the 3 things that help us remain motivated over the long term. He says, hey, carrot and stick motivation do not work because they are temporary. But if you seek to be autonomous in what you do, if you seek to master what you do, and then you have very strong purpose, you will stay motivated and work on things consistently over and over and over again, right? Just, a lot of people are driven by carrot and a stick, but at the end of the day, they're not long-term. Okay. They're only temporary. And then the last thing is the part of the carryover from Pink to Simon Sinek, who wrote Find Your Why, Start With Why, is finding out what your why is. Like, what's your why? People are like, my kids are my why. Your kids are a what? Getting a big house is a why. No, that's a what too. Big pile of money, why car, why vacation, why? I mean, what? Those are all whats. A why, according to Simon Sinek, is 2 things. Number 1, your why is usually born out of pain. Okay, so if you face some certain insecurity, uncertainty, physical abuse, mental abuse, psychological abuse, the same thing, or whatever, emotional abuse, there's pain around that. If one of your parents was an alcoholic, or if your parents beat you, or if you were in a situation which created a lot of pain, excuse me, in many cases, your why is going to be built around making that pain go away, or keeping that pain from happening for you or for anybody else you love at that time, or people that some people's why is built around making sure that other people, like for instance, unfortunately, when women have babies, they suffer postpartum sometimes, maybe many times. Not a woman, I don't know, but I know it can wreak havoc on them, and it's unfortunate. But there's organizations out there that help women get through postpartum and transition to being the happy, wonderful mothers that they want to be. Not that they're not wonderful otherwise, but they're not happy about things, and it's just a situation that needs to be dealt with and handled so that women specifically can enjoy their lives at a higher level. Well, if you suffered from postpartum and you don't want women to suffer from that, maybe that your why is, it's rooted in that. Now, the other half of it is that, your why is something you have to be able to affect, like AFFECT. You have to be able to affect the outcome of, okay? You need to be able to change it. Right. So, I'm going to go ahead and help, either, make postpartum depression go away, or shorten it for women, or give them some sort of additional support that make it easier for them to work through, whatever it is. Like, you've got to be able to affect the outcome of it. And so, Sinek's formula simply says, I'm going to contribute X so that I can impact Y. I'm going to do this so I can impact the outcome of it. Right. And when you get there and it's tied to an emotion where you're literally going to cry, right, to a certain extent, your why should make you cry. Once you get there, then all bets are off. You'll walk through fire, through walls to make it happen. So, and so here's the thing. Go back to the beginning. Become aware. Let's find out what the problem is. Let's attack it. Let's go ahead and hit it head on. Let's find it and see where it is and what it's causing. Then, once we realize where it comes from and what's happening, then you got to go ahead and start working with the emotions as they come up. So we have define and identify, and then become present. Okay. And then the next step is let's start reframing everything, reprogramming, and let's start believing the things about ourselves we need to believe. Let's start thinking the things we need to think about ourselves. Let's start doing the things that help us feel empowered and empower us to move forward. Fourth, let's figure out what drives us. What does autonomy look like for us? What does mastery look like for us? And then lastly, what is our why? Okay. And the reason I do it in that order is because if you ask somebody who has been dealing with, lifelong, procrastination, perfectionism, self-sabotage, self-hatred, it's hard to ask them what their why is and what they want, because usually, and I'm just from my own experience, like when we're focusing on what we're running away from, we can't really focus on what we move towards. We can't even think about what the future looks like and how great it is, because we're so caught up in trying to avoid the pain that's happening. So the process is let's get rid of it. Let's get rid of all that junk. And then now that our brain is freed up, let's go ahead and let's start thinking about some great things. And I've had clients who are like, I started thinking about things that I hadn't thought about in 20 years, so it's been pretty amazing. So anyway, that's it. It's kind of an abbreviated version of it. If you suffer from procrastination or perfectionism, self-sabotage, you have trouble getting on the phone, trouble getting in front of a camera to record videos for social media, let me know. I might be able to help you fairly quickly. The other thing is we have some challenges that are a lot more than even I can help you with, and I'm going to recommend you get some help from a specialist or somebody who's an expert or professional in helping people with mental health. There's no shame in any mental health issues. There's no shame in having mental health, but you do need to take care of it. Okay, so anyway, that's it. If you have any other questions, let me know. There's all kinds of resources on the page here. If you're watching this on YouTube or someplace else, go to www.phonesalessecrets.com. You can get access to my Facebook page. We've got all kinds of resources and great information. That's where these posts usually go. Anyway, appreciate your time today. My name is Wally Bressler. This has been On the Phone. Hey there, this is Wally Bressler, and on behalf of my guest today, I'd like to thank you for joining us for this episode of On the Phone. If you'd like more information on how to overcome sales call reluctance, procrastination, and self-sabotage, and become an expert on the phone, go to www.phonesalessecrets.com. And if you'd like my free course on how to overcome sales call reluctance, please go to www.phonesalessecrets.com